Hey folks, welcome back. RenegadeCon was held back on June 6th, and a ton of new Heroscape stuff was revealed. I've been dying to talk about it, but I wanted to spend some time actually playtesting a few of the new army cards that have come out. So yeah, a little bit of delay. I know I'm late to the party here, but hopefully I will be able to provide some experience and some insight that you might find valuable. So let's dive in here. I don't want to go through it in the order it was revealed. I want to go through it in order of what I'm most excited to talk about, essentially. So yeah, if we get into the video and it starts to fade, you know, like the intensity starts to fade a little bit, or my enthusiasm fades, well, that would be why. But I'm, you know, honestly, overall, I'm very happy with what I saw. I think this wave was even better than the previous one in terms of what it brings to the table. There was actually quite a few. I went back and rewatched my video recently just to see how I structured it so I could make this one. But when I went back and looked at that wave again, I was kind of faced with, you know, there's only about half of these figures that I'm actually like really looking forward to being able to play on the table. But with this wave, having played a lot of them now as well, just through proxying figures of my own, I'm really stoked. So this is a big step up in terms of design quality, in my opinion. So yeah, let's dive into it. So I think I'm going to start with the one that seemed to have the most people concerned, just to get it out of the way here. This is the Greatbow Archers, and they serve the General Jandar. These figures, it's a two-figure squad, and it's a common squad with 2 life, so it's a multi-life common squad. I'll come back to that in a minute here. Let's just go through the stats really quick. 6 move, very quick. 7 range, very long range, which is great for a squad. 3 attack and 3 defense for 80 points. Now this stat block here, besides the life count, is actually the same as the Krav Maga agents, which is pretty startling to me, honestly, to see something like that rear its head again in Heroscape. Yeah, the Krav Maga are like top tier figures. Like that is a squad from the original master set that has continued to do well for 20 years now. Over 20 years at this point. Yeah, Krav Maga are insane. They're very good. And it's just surprising to me to see another squad have the same stat block. And then on top of that, this squad actually has more life. They've got 2 life per figure rather than 1. So that's startling. So at first it's like, oh, I don't know about this. Now the ability here, long shot specialists, this is the one that I think raised a lot of eyebrows. So when a Greatbow Archer that has not moved this turn attacks a figure at range 4 or greater, add 1 to her attack value. If the target is at range 7 or greater, instead add 2 to her attack value. So in Heroscape, ranged figures ideally want to be fighting at max range anyways, right? You want to stay as far away from your melee opponent, if that's what you're going up against, as possible. You want to flex the range as much as you can. So you are already going to try to be 7 spaces away from an enemy figure, but with this ability, it's actually giving you an additional incentive to stay at that full range value. At 7 range, you're getting plus 2 attack. That's 5 dice without height. You could be sitting in the back of your start zone and be throwing 5 dice on the attack. Unheard of. Like, crazy business here. So it's very clear to me that on paper this looks busted. This looks totally broken. Like, and I was watching Sir Heroscape's live stream as well too after I finished the Renegade one, and he broke it down beautifully, just saying like, okay, here's why it's broken. You know, you line up your figures in the start zone, and your opponent's trying to make their way to you, and you might think that, well, at this range, you know, this is where you're at 7 range, and if you just cross that line, all of a sudden you're at 6 range, and now the archers don't get their full bonus. But as he pointed out, well, you're not within 7 range of this guy, but you're actually in range, or in 7 range of this guy over here. And then you move the line closer, and then you're within 7 range of this one, and within 7 range of this one. And even within melee distance, you're within 7 range of one of those archers, somewhere in the start zone. And so no matter what, the player that's camping in the start zone playing the archers, if you have enough of them, you're basically covering every hex within 7 spaces of your start zone with someone who can take that shot and get the full 5 attack dice. And this is powerful. I probably don't need to spell out why that's so strong, but yeah, just being able to reliably get that bonus time after time after time is really good. Like, it's really dang good. Sir Heroscape, I think, very understandably called this out as like broken. This breaks the meta. Like, this is absolutely this is crossing the Rubicon. We can't come back from this. And I think on paper it looks that way. However, I've played some games with the archers now. About 5, I want to say. I've played 5 different games, 5 different matchups, and it took me all the way until I played my 5th game with them for me to even win a game, let alone like blow it out. Here's the thing: 2-figure squads are just going to struggle. They just inherently struggle, and the reason being is they just don't have enough attacks. They don't make enough of an impact on the board to compete with more activations. So if they run into like a melee bonding army, like the first army I faced them off against, because I figured, okay, the archers are really powerful, I need to give the melee player the best possible chance. And so I ran them up against an axe grinder's army, dwarves, with I think it was Mogrim and Dorum as the bonding heroes. And I clashed those two together, and the dwarves won, like, hands down. It wasn't even close, which really surprised me. But the dwarves get an additional bonus into the archers because the archers are large. So they were rolling 4 defense as a base, and then 5 defense on height as they were approaching. So it made them pretty sturdy as they went into the archers here. So then I changed it up. I can't remember what army I ran them against next, but it took all the way until I put them up against an army I knew they were going to beat before they beat. And I'll talk about that army in a little bit as well too. But yeah, here's the thing. With only 2 figures, you just can't keep up with the amount of damage an opponent can throw out if they're running 3 or 4 figure squads, especially with bonding. Like I tried the archers against the bears, even like unique squads and unique heroes, and they still lost. So yeah, I think what is a good takeaway though, from at least from my time playing the archers, is that it's a high variance squad, because you're relying on 5 dice to do something. Like, you really need each attack to do something. Otherwise, you're giving up so much. Like, it's an opportunity cost, essentially. And if you're not killing a figure every single time you make an attack, you really just can't keep up with the waves and the damage that comes crashing into your start zone. So yeah, like, as I played them, I whiffed a lot of attacks. 5 dice, it's possible to only get 1 skull, 2 skulls, something like that. You're relying on getting like 4 or 5. That's what you really want. And yes, those will happen. Those will happen sometimes. And maybe you'll get lucky and you'll fell a key figure in your opponent's army, and that'll secure you a win. But yeah, I just don't think the consistency's there, and that makes this a tough army to recommend for like tournament play, that sort of thing. If you need to go multiple games and you need good matchups every single time, I think there's a lot of bad matchups for the archers that really hinder them from being able to compete with the best. So while I think the Greatbow Archers are still really good, really quite strong, and they make a good compelling case for themselves here, I don't think they're going to completely destroy the meta as we know it. Yeah, I just don't think they'll have that sort of impact. And I don't presume to know how Delta works, but I also wouldn't be shocked if they actually went down in cost in Delta. I'm not sure how those calculations are inherently made or whatever, but yeah, 80 points for 2 figures, that's 40 points a figure. That's like Tagawa Samurai sort of levels. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of things I like about this design. I'm certainly not saying I don't like it. I like that it's a powerful 2-figure squad that doesn't destroy the way that we play Heroscape. Like that's a positive thing. I know I've been saying it's not going to compete with the top tier armies, and I believe that, but I also think that's a good thing that it's not going to compete with the top tier armies. So a couple of things I really enjoy here. Firstly, I really like the stat block and life count combo here, and I know the common figures getting multi-life, like a common squad getting multi-life, has been lambasted by a lot of folks in the community, and I get it. Like, I get the argument why, in that it's going to make managing the board more hectic, more chaotic, trying to keep track of which figure's wounded, that sort of thing. A lot of folks were saying, like, why didn't they just do 1 life with 5 defense or something like that, you know? And I can see the point. I still disagree with it, with a caveat, I suppose. The caveat being that when I played this squad, I was using 3D printed wound marker things that clip onto the base, and that made it so much easier. Like, I couldn't imagine playing this army without that. It'd be so tedious. So that was one big thing, and I think that's important to note here. But the trade-off, I think, is valuable, because with 2 life on each of these figures, you can actually more readily disengage and take that leaving engagement attack in order to get away from danger. And I think that's really valuable for this squad, for this army card design. And I think giving that up and going to 5 defense with 1 life, or 6 defense or 4 defense or whatever with 1 life, would really lose something that makes this army card unique. We have so many figures out there that are like I mentioned, the Tagawa Samurai. There's a great example, right? 1 life, 5 defense, and yes, you want high defense for Samurai, right? Because they have the counter strike ability. But I've just so often felt that a lot of those high value figures, like the Tagawa Samurai, should be given 2 life. Like, I think 2 life is a better design choice for certain figures like that. Whether they're common or unique, it doesn't really matter to me, as long as there's an acceptable way to track the wounds. And that's the caveat, like I mentioned earlier. Because I had these third-party wound marker tracker things, I was able to keep track of it much easier than just placing wound markers on the bases of the figures and trying to move them that way. Yeah, so that's definitely a big asterisk next to my opinion there, is that you need some sort of way to keep track of things. The other thing that I wanted to mention here too, about actually physically sitting down and playing this squad, is that I noticed very quickly that counting out to 7 range all of the time, not just on your turn, but on your opponent's turn. I was doing it in Soloscape, so I was counting it for both. But you have to be at 7 range exactly. It's not just like a normal threat range that you get with range squads, where, like, okay, they can shoot out to a range of 7 and any hex in between is a viable target. No, with this squad, you need to be exactly 7 hexes away in order to get that full bonus. So I found I was constantly counting out 7 spaces out from each archer, trying to mark, okay, they can hit here, that this character can hit here, that sort of thing. And then when it came time to move my opponent's forces, I had to do the same sort of song and dance, counting out 7 hexes, because you either want to be 8 hexes away or 6 hexes away or closer, right? You don't want to be exactly 7 hexes away from any archer. So there's a lot of tedium involved in running a big army of Greatbow Archers, because you have to keep track of the wounds and you have to keep track of the distances. And so one of the things that popped into my head as I was playing this army multiple times was that, geez, I really wish I had a string, like I had a string that was marked out to 7 hexes distance. And you cut it so that I can just hold up this string above the board and figure out, okay, can this archer see this person at 7 range? Yes, they can. No, they can't, right? And then you could actually just like dip the string in paint or something like that for the 7 hex to 4 hex range, and then you could have that marked so you know where the +1 bonus is versus the +2 bonus. And yeah, if I were actually sitting down and wanting to take an army like this to a tournament, I absolutely would come prepared with those items to make the gameplay that much easier, because it really does slow it down having to count out 7 hexes all the time. Yeah, it was a bit of a chore. So how do I recommend using this squad? Well, most of the builds I tried out were maxed builds, like either at 400 points or 480 points, right? Just max out as many Greatbow Archers that you can in the formats, right? That's mostly what I tried, but it's not the only thing I tried. I also tried just taking 3 and putting up a good screen with like Raylin and rats and other things to clog up the front of the start zone. So I tried that as well, and overall those armies all lost. They all lost to their opponents, and I'm not trying to say that like, oh, I played 5 games, like, oh yeah, this is going to be the arbiter of whether or not this squad is good or not. No, nothing like that. But in my experience, I just didn't pull out a lot of wins with the Greatbow Archers. So I think that the use case that I'm most excited about is just one squad of Greatbow Archers, and using them basically in the way that you would use the Krav Maga, but you're just paying a little bit less. So I kind of see them as a Krav filler, or a Krav clone, maybe, is a good way to describe it, where they're basically doing the same sort of thing. They have good defense at range because of the 2 life, and they can make great attacks, especially if you get the initiative flip and they move into a good position on order marker 3, and then you get initiative on the next round, and now they're attacking with probably height because they've got the 6 move. They're moving up onto higher ground, and then they get that 7 range bonus as well. So that's 6 dice. That's pretty bonkers. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, I think the mistake that players will face when building an army like this is overcommitting to this army card, putting too many of them in your army. I really think 2 gives you a lot of value. You keep them out of harm's way, and you just use them to pick off high value targets as they can. But yeah, I think overcommitting is going to be a mistake, a little bit of a blunder. However, that being said, I definitely see the impetus behind it, because this squad, more than most, gains a lot of value, gains tremendous value by having so many figures in your army, right? If you're running an army with only 2 Greatbow Archers, that means that both of those archers essentially have a ring of 7 hexes around them where they get their full bonus, and that doesn't cover that many hexes on the board. But if you run 12 of these archers and you got them all lined up in your start zone, that ring, the rings overlap with each other, and now you are getting tremendous value from having that many potential archers to shoot at the targets, because you get to cover so many more hexes on the board. So it's less of a linear climb and more of there's an uptick eventually. Like I don't know where it starts, but yeah, the more of these figures you have in your army, the better the army card is. Like, it just gets better as you go and get more of them. But I guess the problem I ran into is that it doesn't get good enough, right? Like, it gets better, yes, for sure, but is it enough to compete with some of the bigger armies out there? I think if you go up against anything that outnumbers you to a large extent, you're going to struggle with this build. So yeah, I think 1x, like one copy of this squad, is what I'm gonna look forward to running the most. Yeah. So I'm really curious to see what other folks end up doing with them. But that's kind of where I'm at. I think the last thing I'm going to mention here about the Greatbow Archers, I know I've been talking about them so much, but they really were the one squad that I think warranted the most discussion, because on paper, they look super threatening, but in practice, that wasn't my experience, you know. But the last thing I wanted to mention here was the general affiliation, Jandar. I'm not crazy about the choice, to be honest. I can get it. I can totally get behind it. I was kind of hoping Ular, I think Ular makes more sense, because then you have giants with Ular. Ular already has a giant, right? Jotun's already on Team Ular, so it would have been nice to get these figures as Ular as well, but I could definitely see that being a bit of an overlap thematically with the Abrian Archers, which have the same sort of range value, and they're archers as well too, so maybe they're just trying to share the love a little bit. I will say that I think the Jandar General really helps the Greatbow Archers, especially in the 1X role I was talking about, because if you splash these into an army that has Sir Gilbert, either with the Knights or with the Frost Claws, all of a sudden you can use Jandar's Dispatch to move the archers into 7 range with something, and then reveal the order marker on the archers to take the shot. Now that's a pretty risky play, because you have no guarantee that Jandar's Dispatch will give you the hexes needed. You'll get enough Jandar symbols to make this play happen, but I think that could be a really interesting way to utilize this squad as a support role rather than as an army core. So yeah, I like it a lot. I like the 2 life on this squad. Now, should we get more 2 life common squads in the future? I don't know, it's tough to say. I don't know if you could do it with a 3-figure squad or a 4-figure squad. I think the saving grace here is that this is only a 2-figure squad, and I think if it was a 3-figure squad, instantly that breaks everything, right? Because the only thing holding this squad back is the lack of activations. Only getting 2 attacks in a turn is not very good, just generally. And if this is your whole army, then you're only ever going to get 2 attacks at most in a turn. So yeah, if this was a 3-figure squad, boom, broken, right? Because then you can kill things fast enough to keep up with the pace of them coming at you. But with 2, yeah, not really. You got to get pretty lucky. Yeah. So anyways, that's the Greatbow Archers. I dig it, and I think there's arguments to be made for having going full on 6 copies of this in an army, or just having 1 copy in an army. Maybe there's an argument to be made for having 2 or 3 in an army as well too, and just kind of keeping them as a ranged core, I suppose, with maybe a good melee hero, maybe Queen Maladrix or something like that with her honor guard. I don't know. They're interesting, and they definitely have some overlap with the Ordo Borealis. But like I said, when I played that Bears army, it had Ordo in it, and the Ordo whooped the Greatbow Archers' butts. So I don't know. The Ordo is still pretty good, even with the Greatbow Archers in the game. I'm just glad there's something now in Contemporary that can match the Ordo, so you have an alternate option. To that end, I saw someone point out that having a copy, 1 copy of the Greatbow Archers, is like having Severus in your army, in Contemporary especially, and for 20 points cheaper. And I get it. I think that's a pretty good comparison. Now, Severus has 9 range, which there is a big difference between 7 range and 9 range, not disputing that at all. Right? But when I talked about the Ordo back when they released, I was saying that, in all time formats, if the Ordo become something that is to be feared, then we're going to see a lot of Severus in the future, because you need something to outrange the Ordo. Now, because this is Contemporary, and these figures would fit into a Contemporary format, and Severus doesn't, I think it's cool to have an answer for the Ordo in the Greatbow Archers. They're a little bit more versatile overall. However, I do think one squad of Ordo probably gets you more mileage than one squad of Greatbow Archers, hence the price differential between them. So, yeah. All right, cool. Let's move on. Releasing in the same set as the Greatbow Archers are the Scions of Icaria. And this squad is a 3-figure squad that gives some dragon bonding in Contemporary, which is really cool. It's what we needed, I think, to replace the green scales, more or less. The green scales are from D&D, of course, and they have, for a very long time, been the go-to squad whenever you want to take a dragon. I personally have come to kind of resent the green scales quite a bit because of this, where, like, it's basically in almost any situation, in any build, it just makes the most sense to just grab some green scales if you're going to take a dragon. If you're planning on bringing a dragon, yeah, you should just take some green scales as well, too, because they add so much value. So getting another option here is great. Like, I'm all for it. Now, do these Scions of Icaria actually replace the green scales? That remains to be seen, and I think the general consensus is going to be a big no. But we'll see. Anyways, let's talk about the stat block here. So 1 life common squad. They have a move of 5 with flying. They have a range of 1, attack 2, defense 2. So pretty weak attack and defense. And they're 75 points. That's 25 points a figure. That's basically like the price of a wormling for each one of them. So I think that's a good comparison to kind of draw. Is like, okay, is this as good as a wormling? Well, stat-wise, no, it really isn't. And wormlings have a few more abilities, special attacks and whatnot, and bonding with each other that kind of push them over the edge. But the wormlings don't bond with a hero, like a big hero dragon. And there's 3 Scions of Icaria, whereas the wormlings only have 2. They bond with one other, right? So that's one line of distinction to draw there. But let's read the other abilities here so we can get a better comparison. So the first ability on the Scions of Icaria is Cleave to the Mighty. At the start of the game, choose an Archmage, Dragon, King, or Queen, unique hero you control, to be the liege for all Scions of Icaria you control. Before taking a turn with the Scions of Icaria, you may take a turn with their chosen liege. My liege, my honor, yes. I love this because the Scions are kind of played up to be like the bratty teenage kids of the dragons from the previous like Heroscape run, right? So you got a little mini Mimring, a mini mini Nilfheim, and a mini Braxis. So they're little baby dragons, right? And they're petulant, right? They're petulant children, and they're spoiled rotten, essentially, right? Which is why they bond with royalty, right? Archmage, dragon, kings, and queens, right? They bond with the royalty, and yeah, it's great. It's great theming all across the board. I love it, and my prayers have been answered. Sudema gets bonding. Woo! Sudema gets bonding. What? Yeah, Sudema gets bonding in official Heroscape. Yeah, I'm very excited about that. I don't think this squad is gonna, like, you know, rock the world or whatever. Like, Sudema is still 140 points in Classic. These figures are 75 points each. Yeah, like, it'd be super expensive to run an army like that, and probably really terrible too. Now, in Delta, if, you know, Sudema, like, she's a lot lower in Delta, and I imagine Delta's going to drop the Scions a little bit as well, too. We'll see. But there might be a future for that build in Delta. And I might just bring it out to, like, local event or something just for fun. But, yeah, Sudema with bonding, that's hilarious. Queen Kyrion gets bonding as well, too. She's contemporary. So that's good for her. I don't know if this is exactly the bonding she needed or not, if this is the squad that's going to do it. I don't know. I think both Sudema and Queen Q there. They need figures that bond with them, but the squad itself can actually put in work, and then they can just kind of like slowly inch their way up and deal with high value targets. That's kind of the thing they need, and I don't think this squad really does that. I think this squad is maybe more relying on their liege, their chosen liege, to do a lot of the work, and they're just going to kind of cling to that figure's coattails and kind of go along for the ride. So that's kind of how I see this going down. But yeah, anyways, we still have one more ability here, which is the Draconic Breath special attack. Range 4, attack 2. Only figures within 3 clear sight spaces of the Scions of Icaria's liege can be targeted with Draconic Breath special attack. Now, I've seen it happen multiple times, and I'm guilty of it too. You read that ability once, and you're like, wait, I thought it said range 4. Why is it then in the ability saying only 3 clear sight spaces? And the reason is because it's range 4 from the dragon, like from the Scion. They can shoot out to a range of 4, but they can only hit targets that are within 3 clear sight spaces of their chosen liege. So their target could be up to 3 spaces away from their liege, and they could be like 7 spaces away from their liege, right? Or something like that, right? So they could be a long ways away if they need to. They're just trying to protect their liege with this attack. Now, it's pretty weak, right? Range 4, attack 2, pretty lackluster, but this is a common squad with a special attack, and that's rare. That is honestly very rare. So getting that sort of tech on this card, I think it's good, it's important, and it will have some applications in certain figure matchups. So let's go back to the bonding, because that's the reason why you're bringing this squad at all, right? You're not going to draft them and not have a chosen liege in your army. That's foolish. Don't do that. So the targets here are very diverse. I love Archmage being on the list here. Giving Sonlin bonding is just awesome. It's so cool. And I have to say, because I've played many games with this squad now, I think about 4 or 5 games with this squad, bonding with Sonlin Age of Annihilation, I have come around on that design. Oh my goodness. Sonlin Age of Annihilation is legit, is so good, like really great. And all it took was just a little bit of bonding to make that happen. Because as a standalone figure with no bonding, it's really tough to put an order marker on him. And you never know, like, okay, when's the right time to put the order marker here? I should just commit to my army core. Like, he was too much of a specialist, I think. But when you put him in a king build, essentially, right? The army I was running was Sonlin, Age of Annihilation, and 3 squads of Scions of Icaria. And I was undefeated. I couldn't lose with this army. It was so good. Like, and I know on paper it doesn't look like it would be, because you look at these stats and you look at his stats too, and you're thinking, what, 6 life with 3 defense? What are you talking about? That's so flimsy. Why would you run that? Why wouldn't you put like Raylan in the army or something like that? But the way that you play it is that you move Sonlin so that your opponent never gets a chance to attack him. He's got a lot of movement, and he flies, and he's got a 6 range. Like, you can position him in ways where he's at the maximum of his range, and you're flying Scions of Icaria in to body block, or he's coming in close and he's getting melee attacks against like the Frost Claws and stuff like that, and then you put Scions of Icaria in the way to body block after you clear a spot, right? I won a lot of games playing this army, and granted, contemporary, right? I was only playing contemporary only with it, and the second it went up against the Greatbow Archers, it lost spectacularly. That was the only win that the Greatbow Archers got, and it was an easy win, because the whole strength of this build is not letting your opponent attack Sonlin. He is a glass cannon, and he can't remove the wounds that he takes, so you need to protect him at all costs and play incredibly defensively. It's like a whole new headspace you have to think about, where there'll be turns where you don't attack, like you just reposition, like that sort of defensive play is what I'm talking about. But it's a very fun army to play, and you get to do a lot of cool things with Sonlin. Yes, his healing ability is worthless in this build. It is what it is, but you're relying on his attack power and his maneuverability. That's what you want. And the Scions pair with him spectacularly well. I love this army. I love it. Obviously, they're going to work well with other dragons, and I like the addition of kings and queens there too, because Braxis is a queen, and there's a couple of dragons that are kings right now. It's a redundancy, but it opens up future design space, which I think is cool. So yeah, the dragon that probably benefits the most from the Scions is Karos. I think Karos probably benefits the most, because Karos wants to be up in the forefront, wants to be getting dirty and duking it out, and having little Scions flying around that can spit little draconic breath special attacks. That's great. That's like, honestly, it adds a lot of value that might be missing from that army otherwise. So yeah, I really look forward to trying that build out as well. For most of the other dragons, though, you probably want to play them back. So the green scales are still going to be a better choice overall, because the green scales can tank hits, and they actually get a bonus from being next to their chosen Lizard King dragon thing. So yeah, I don't know if this squad is going to completely dethrone the green scales, is what I'm trying to say. If the price goes down far enough in Delta, then maybe, because the green scales actually go up in Delta if I recall correctly. But yeah, I think the green scales are still going to be the go-to for a lot of dragon players. One dragon that might benefit from this is Zenithrax. Now, Zenithrax is too expensive for what she does, I think, just in general. But I also subscribe to the opinion that Zenithrax is a melee dragon, because the Erupting Earth special attack, you just can't rely on it, and it's not nearly as impactful or as good as previous dragons' breath weapons are. So I think you need to be playing Zenithrax as a melee figure, and then the Scions can be up front and getting those special attacks in. What the Scions don't do is protect Zenithrax, because Zenithrax only has 3 defense, 8 life. And you might be tempted to say, well, why not play Zenithrax the same way you were playing Sonlin in the army you were describing earlier, Slugger? But the problem there is that Zenithrax doesn't have the speed or the range that Sonlin does. And even just having a slightly lower value in both of those categories makes it so much easier for your opponent to actually run up and do damage to Zenithrax. Zenithrax loses some maneuverability as well too. Like as a physical figure on the board, there just aren't as many places where you can position her and still get attacks off. So yeah, I think Zenithrax being played like defensively like Sonlin is a mistake. I think you just need to be aggressive with Zenithrax, and then use the Scions and your Vine Glyphs to tie up any melee counterattacks. There's nothing you can do about the range matchup, unfortunately. So if your opponent's bringing long or Greatbow Archers, you might be cooked either way. But yeah, just trying to be up and aggressive is how I would recommend playing Zenithrax, if that's the way you want to go. I really like the theming behind putting the dragons in with dragon hunters, because that's what the Greatbow Archers are. They're giants that hunt dragons, and that's cool theming. I really like that. But in terms of how many copies of each squad you're gonna want, I don't know. Yeah, like with the Scions here, you definitely want like 2, 3, maybe 4 squads of them, depending on the format size and which figure they're bonding with, because essentially they're going to be used in a king build, right? You want a big dragon or some sort of chosen liege that's going to do the bulk of the work, while the Scions just kind of pitter patter around and do a bit of board control, that sort of stuff. So that's what you want with them. So maybe 3 or 4 copies is a safe place to be. But then with the Greatbow Archers, I don't know. I think the jury's kind of out in terms of how many copies you want there. Do you want 1 copy just to have? Do you want 3 copies? Do you want 6, right? Because that's like a maxed out 500 point army there. So yeah, I don't know. I think they make for a good pairing, but you'll have to make some tough calls, because you definitely don't want 6 copies of the Scions of Icaria. That's way too many, unless you're playing in massive games, right, where 700 point, 800 point, that sort of thing. Yeah, I think like 6 would be more than overkill. So yeah, I'm not sure how many copies to recommend. For me, I'll be getting 3, I think, is where I'm at. I think 3 will get me what I want for both armies. I don't really need to play an all Greatbow Archer army. Having done it now a few times, I don't see it. So yeah, I think I'll be sitting quite a few Greatbow Archers, and just be taking like 1 or 2 copies in a game, just to add a little bit of range into an army. But the Scions ×3 with Sonlin, Age of Annihilation, whew, I am excited to play that army. I want to keep playing it. It's so fun, and it's really playing Heroscape in a very different way, a very creative way. So yeah, very very excited about this kit here, this set. I think it's gonna be great. So next we have the Gelryie Vanguards and their Krakenling. And this is a really thematic set. I really like this common army expansion box here, because both figures belong in the same army together and they benefit each other, and that's kind of cool. That's pretty rare to see in some of these Heroscape releases. So yeah, I'm really happy that they pulled it off here. Another thing that I'm really happy to see is a 4-figure common squad. I was really afraid we weren't going to be getting these anymore, and I understand, you know, it's expensive to make plastic products now, and to get them, you know, sculpted and painted, like it's expensive. And I was afraid, given last wave, that we were only ever going to see 2-figure squads like the Tanuki Tricksters, or 3-figure squads like the Molten Crustaceans, and that would be it. Like that would be all we'd get from here on out. But 4-figure squads are really necessary in Heroscape because of the competitive edge they have. 4-figure squads, like just getting more stuff on the board in order to compete with what has released in the past, is important. And this squad, the Gelryie Vanguards, I think is a strong contender. Like as a 4-figure common squad, they've got a lot of stuff that they bring to the table. So I'm really excited to get them. So the stat block right off the top here: 1 life common squad, movement of 5, no flight, but they do have a swim ability, which is the same as Slither from the old game. It just means that they don't have to stop when they enter water, which is good. It's thematic. These are the aquatic cousins of the Kiri warriors. So the Gelryie have been used to fighting the Kiri in Valhalla, and that animosity between them is going to come up here in just a moment, so I'll talk about one of their other abilities. But yeah, they're a melee squad. They've got these little tridents, and the tridents look awesome, by the way. Like, great design. 3 attack, which is good for a melee squad. 2 defense, really bad. That's really bad for a melee squad. Very, very flimsy. But there's a catch to that, and we'll get there too. 65 points. Not too shabby point-wise. That's a little bit more than, you know, your Romans or your Blade Gruts, those being kind of similar figure designs. And those figures actually have bonding too. But the abilities on this card are kind of nuts. So let's talk about those. Tidal Advance. This is the big one for sure. At the start of each round, after placing order markers, you may move each fierce and unfathomable figure you control up to 1 space for each of your order markers on the Gelryie Vanguards. So fierce and unfathomable, those are personalities, and that's located over on the left-hand side of each card text. Now, the Gelryie Vanguards themselves are fierce. And the Krakenling that comes in the same set that we'll talk about in a minute is unfathomable. So they can not only move themselves up the board, but they can also move the Krakenling with them. The only other figure that is affected by this currently is Girushia. She's also fierce, and I love the theming there. Great, right? The only Dryan wizard that's like water-based moves with tidal advance. Super cool. I don't know about the viability of a build like that, but moving Girushia up the board for free, that's not half bad. That's pretty good. Yeah. Now, it sounds like it's just one space, right? But you got to think about, okay, well, how many order markers are you going to place on this army card? Well, most of the time, while you're developing your army up the board, you're going to put all 4 of your order markers on this army card. So that's actually 4 spaces of movement for your entire army. If you're only running Gelryie Vanguards and fierce and unfathomable figures, that's your entire army moving 4 spaces. That's better than Jandar's Dispatch. That's better than Orc Battle Rush, right? Because you're moving the whole army. Crazy. Like, it's awesome. In playing this army, because I played a couple of games with them, not as many, I was really impressed with their ability to develop, obviously, but I was also really impressed with the decision making that comes from this ability later on. What I mean by this is that you eventually want to stop putting order markers on the Gelryie Vanguards and start putting order markers on your Krakenlings or whatever other army cards you have in your army. And when you do that, all of a sudden you lose a bit of tidal advance because you don't have as many order markers on the Gelryie Vanguards anymore. So eventually you shift your focus. It's no longer about development, it's about capitalizing on that development. And that's a really, really cool design to throw in. There's interesting decision making to be made here. The other thing too is that there are a lot of figures, especially within Age of Annihilation now, because they've introduced so many, but there are a lot of figures that use the X order marker, right? If you think of Glanerva, the Crimson Widow's a new one, she also uses the X order marker, and those figures will have a harder time in a Gelryie Vanguards army because you don't want to put your X on them. You want to put your X on the Gelryie Vanguard so you get an additional movement point. But if they have abilities that you need to trigger, well, you got to be a little bit more cautious about where you place the X. I think ultimately that'll boil down to an army building thing where you just don't want to pair those two together. It'd be like putting 2 different figures in your army that both need to use the X order marker. It's probably just a bad idea to do it that way. That might put some limitations on what you want to run this with, but that's okay. Like, I mean, that's how Heroscape works. But it's a great ability. Honestly, I really look forward to seeing how they play into other melee armies, because they're very strong into range. And here's part of the reason why. It's the next ability, Defend the Deep. A Gelryie Vanguard adds 2 to its defense value when it's on a water space or when it defends against an attack from a figure that has height advantage. And this is what I was talking about earlier about that thematic Gelryie versus Kiri sort of thing. These guys have been fighting the Kiri for so long that they're used to having the low ground. The Kiri are those winged warriors of Valhalla. Like, they always have height advantage. That's one of their big traits. And so these folks have just basically developed strategies to defend against that. They've become masters of defending from the low ground. And I think it's really cool. That it's a really good thematic and interesting mechanical ability on the card. It does both really well. It plays to the theme, and it introduces a really neat mechanic. The +2 defense on water is an obvious one, because you're going to want to just hop them into water whenever you can. But the just having the low ground against a height, like, obviously you want to take height when you can get it, right? Because you get a +1 attack and a +1 defense. But sometimes it's not going to be that valuable. Like, you can just give up having the height advantage, and you won't be penalized as much for it. So yeah, Really cool design. I already talked about Swim, but one other thing I wanted to mention that I noticed while playing them is that it's really easy to get out of a lot of start zones with Swim, because some start zones, like I was playing on Rocky Foundations, they have water hexes kind of all sprinkled about, and you could just run right through it like it's nothing. So that's a lot of fun. Some maps kind of have those sort of water barriers, and the Gelryie Vanguards, they ain't phased by that. They just keep on trucking. So, yeah. The other cool thing about Defend from the Deep and Tidal Advance, like that combo, is that I think the Gelryie Vanguards are one of the only melee squads in the game that actually play better into range than they do into other melee, because other melee is going to be fighting them more often than not with that 2 defense, and they're going to have to clash there and be likely felled by stronger melee combatants. So I want to play this army into a melee build and see how it goes. Now, on this card, they might not have many tricks to fight against melee, but on the other card that comes with this set, they certainly do. So let's talk about the Krakenling, because this is a figure that I think will absolutely dominate in melee matchups. It lives for those melee matchups. So the Krakenling is a common hero, and it's aligned with Alar. And let's talk about the stat block here first. So 3 life. 3 life on a common hero. Yes. All right, well, 3 life on a common hero. What's the big deal about that? Well, it's that you can't track wounds for a common hero on the card if you have multiples of them, right? You have to track the wounds on the battlefield. And so what this presents is an interesting scenario where you're going to have to make like stacks of wounds on the board. Not the most ergonomic, not the most graceful solution to the problem. So I really do understand why lots of folks that I've seen in the Heroscapers Discord don't like this idea. They didn't like it with the Grave Grim. They wanted the Grave Grim to be uncommon, and they want the Krakenling to be uncommon as well too. If I'm honest, they have a point for sure, but if I'm honest, I don't like uncommon heroes. I think it was a neat experiment that they tried back in the D&D days, but I would much rather just have multi-life common heroes rather than uncommon. I don't want to have to mark up my cards or mark up my figures in a way that differentiates them. I think that's kind of silly. It feels very custom-y to do things like that. It doesn't feel like the game was designed around that mechanic, because it wasn't. Although the argument can certainly be made that the game was not designed around the mechanic of placing wound markers on the battlefield. So, yeah, we've definitely crossed over. You know, we've crossed the threshold there with the Age of Annihilation War Council designs, and here we are, just continuing that essentially with a 3 life common hero. I like common heroes a lot. I think common heroes need to get more love. I would love to see more common heroes in the future, and if they need to be multi-life in order to make them viable, then so be it. I see it as a necessary evil, essentially. Because for so long, common heroes were really relegated to having high defense and 1 life, which made them super unviable in most situations. That was kind of the case. That's your Demetef guards, that sort of stuff, where only single life just kind of makes them bad in a way. Whereas the Krakenling having 3 life makes it a lot more viable, I think. Anyways, it's got more stats here too. Range 1. Oh, I skipped the move. Move of 4, so pretty slow, and I think that's important. But there are some abilities that'll help that in a moment. So move of 4, range of 1, attack of 4. Crazy. That's really good. And then defense of 5. Also quite good. 5 defense paired with 3 life is pretty survivable, and for 85 points, not even 100 points for that, not too shabby. Now, the movement of 4 on a melee figure, that's pretty bad. That's rough. So these are basically like Queen Quirion's stats, essentially. Like, just take 1 defense off and put it onto life, and there you have it. But there's more to it than that. So the first ability here is called Warp Space. Instead of moving normally, you may place a Krakenling on an empty space within 4 spaces. If a Krakenling is engaged when it starts to warp space, it will take any leaving engagement attacks. So this power reminds me a lot of Tulbakra's power, the Morrow guy who can teleport 10 spaces away. He's limited by having to stay on the same level, but the Krakenling isn't, and I think that's an important distinction, because, like, I mean, teleporting 10 spaces is crazy. Like, it's a bonkers ability. I love that figure. It's such a weird design. But the Krakenling only moving 4, but being able to jump up to a high perch that cleared up, or like hop up to the top of a castle, whatever, right? There's no restriction on it. You don't need line of sight to the space. That's important too. And there's no height limitations. So yeah, honestly, really good ability, and you're probably going to use it to move the Krakenling most of the time. So that's cool. The next ability, however, kind of plays against it. So it's called Eldritch Switch. After moving normally, a Krakenling may switch spaces with an adjacent single-spaced figure. Figures moved by Eldritch Switch never take any leaving engagement attacks. This is really interesting because it allows you to swap places with your opponent. So if your opponent's attacking from height, surprise, now I've got the high ground. It's over, Anakin! The other thing that I really like about this power is it does not specify you need to swap with an opponent's figure. It just says an adjacent figure. So you might have a frontline defense up against a melee army or something like that, and you could move your Krakenling up, swap places with one of your frontline defenders, and just launch into attacks on your opponent. I love that. And there's a lot of figures in Age of Annihilation that I wish didn't specify enemy figures. The Kilkrax's Witchcraft Telekinesis is one of the big ones. What a tragedy that it specifies it has to be an enemy figure. Why can't you just let Kilkrax move her own figures? Let her develop her army. It frustrates me. That's a big miss for the War Council there, I think. I'm sorry, but yeah, big missed opportunity with that design. Anyways, I'm glad we didn't make the same blunder here with Eldritch Switch. This is cool. And I like that it doesn't let you warp and then switch. You have to move normally first, and then you can switch. So you have to choose. It's either or. You're either warping this turn, or you're going to use Eldritch Switch this turn. You can't do both. Flailing Tentacles is, well, I mean, it's a big, powerful ability. So a Krakenling may attack up to 3 times on its turn. Reduce the number of attacks by 1 for each wound marker it has. So this is just like the Fen Hydra from D&D, where you're cutting off the heads of the Hydra, and this one you're cutting off the tentacles, I guess, presumably, right? But yeah, triple attack, and it can be against the same figure. Huge. This is huge, especially that it's very unlikely that you're going to be attacking up on a figure. It's more likely that you're going to have the high ground because you're going to Eldritch Switch with your opponent, or find some way to warp space up onto the height, or whatever you need to do. So that's 3 attacks of 5 with height, right? Brutal. Yeah. Obviously, the Krakenling's gonna suffer a lot as it takes wounds, right? The value of the card is gonna go down quite a bit as it gets to double attack or only a single attack. So you're being penalized quite a bit for taking wounds on this figure, but that's what the 5 defense is supposed to help mitigate. Yeah. The last ability is Swim, so the Krakenling can also just move through the water. It's the same as Slither, and it's the same sort of idea as what they've done in the past with like Whirlwind Assault, Master's Assault, that sort of thing, right? Where there's the same power, but it's got multiple names just to fit the thematic core of it, or the theming, right? So that's fine, and Swim's a good name for it, right? So anyways, that's the Krakenling. There's a lot on this card. It's very text heavy, but the last 2 powers are really easy to understand. Triple attack and can move through water. So it's really the first 2 that you have to keep an eye on. So that this is a little bit more complex, a little bit more complicated. The Eldritch theming is kind of interesting, like I guess the background behind the figure is neat. But to that end, I mean, I love Alar getting, some love. Right? I like Alar receiving figures. I just can't help but feel that like this is the one out of all of them this time around that I feel is the most misplaced, at least in my opinion. I think Vidar would have been better, along with the Gelryie. The Gelryie went to Vidar. I think that's a cool choice. I think the Krakenling being some sort of monstrosity, some sort of horrific sort of thing, fits Vidar better than it fits Alar. Alar is kind of like that high fantasy sort of magic stuff. I don't get an Eldritch vibe from Alar. But like Sudema, for example, being Vidar, I think that fits the Krakenling a little bit better. So I appreciate the support. I appreciate Alar not being gone and forgotten. I appreciate a lot of the original War Council designs that were supposed to be Volorak being changed to Alar. It just fits so much better in my opinion, and it also doesn't trample over what is supposed to be the territory of one of the original core 5 generals. So, but this is one that I think probably should have gone elsewhere. So I don't know. I haven't seen anyone else bring this up before. So maybe I'm just alone in thinking that. What I have seen is folks complaining about the Scions. And to me, that one's like a no-brainer. Like, I don't get it. I don't get the argument, why not Utgar, right? So the Scions of Icaria, I know I'm jumping back now, but I guess I should have talked about it back when I talked about the Scions. The Scions of Icaria are Utgar. And a lot of folks are saying, like, oh, they should be Alar, right? Because the green scales are Alar. And I'm just kind of scratching my head like, what? No, why? What? Look at the dragon figures that are being represented here. It's a Mimring, it's a Braxis, and it's a Nilfheim, right? Those are like Mimring's Utgar, Braxis is Vidar, and Nilfheim is Jandar. Those are your 3 options. Like, in my opinion, those are the only 3 you have to choose from. Because if you're gonna say that like these little references to previous dragons are going to be in a squad together, and that squad isn't going to follow any one of those references, any one of those dragons, like, what? In what world does that make any sense? I just don't get it. Like, I think you'd have more people complaining about that had they gone that direction and just made the whole squad Alar. Then you have people saying like, well, why isn't there like a mini Karos in this squad? Like, what? Like, yeah. So maybe it was a lose-lose situation for Renegade in this moment, but I think they chose the right one. I think Utgar absolutely makes sense, and it fits the theming behind the little petulant, rich kid, spoiled brats. Like, that edgelord energy that Utgar is filled to the brim with, it fits perfectly. Yeah, it fits like a glove. I've got no problems with that general affiliation. I think it's a good one. It was the right call. Yeah, it's just the Krakenling for me. Just the Krakenling. I don't know. Yeah, I think Vidar probably would have been a better play for this one, but oh well. Now, how many copies of the Krakenling and Gelryie Vanguards Common Army expansion should you get? I mean, it depends on you, but like, how many am I gonna get? It's probably 5. That's probably the right number. You don't want 5 Krakenlings in your army, obviously. That's just too many heroes, too many common heroes. But you do need a lot of squads, right? You need a good melee core here because they have such weak defense, the Vanguards. They need numbers, and by being able to move your whole army out of the start zone with their tidal advance, yeah, I think you just need to pile in the numbers there. So I think the army is probably 5 copies of the Vanguards and 2 Krakenlings as support. I think that makes for a pretty good build. Yeah, they cover each other's weaknesses in a good and interesting way. I played them against the Greatbow Archers, like just a maxed out Greatbow Archer army, and I never even once got to use a Krakenling, because by the time they actually got to the battle, the Gelryie Vanguards had cleaned up everything. Yeah, so I played the maxed out Greatbow Archer army, playing super defensive lineup in the start zone, that sort of thing, pinging at range as much as I could, trying to be annoying with a couple of archers. And yeah, in the end, the Gelryie player still had both Krakenlings unharmed and more than a full squad of Vanguards left. So yeah, that's kind of like a total annihilation sort of wipeout there for the Greatbow Archers. So yeah, if we were worried about the Greatbow Archers taking over, well, the same wave that introduced them also introduced a perfect counter army. Yeah, the Gelryie Vanguards are going to clean up the Greatbow Archers, I think, in most scenarios. So yeah, but what I like about it, about the Vanguard design, is that the Vanguards themselves are better into ranged figures because they move faster and they get that bonus defense against height attacks. But the Krakenling is better into melee figures because it wants to be able to move in and get surrounded by multiple targets so you can hit a lot of things on your turn. And I really dig how the two function together. They shore up each other's weaknesses, right? You keep the Krakenlings in your army so you can unleash massive melee assaults, and you have the Vanguards in your army, obviously, to get to close the distance on ranged figures. It's really good. It's just like, I don't know, it's kind of like an army that doesn't show an obvious weak point to it. You don't need range if you can move your whole army within range of your opponent. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going to beat the Gelryie at this point in time. I want to play test it a little bit more and just see what I can come up with. In Contemporary, this might be it. Like, this might be the one. So if you want to, get a great army right out of the box, here it is. Just pick up some copies of that and you are set. You are good to go. Nice. Yeah, I like it. So at this point, I've been talking at lengths about the common squads and common heroes, like these common army boxes, because I think there's a ton of stuff to talk about with them. They introduce so many unique and interesting mechanics into the game. So yeah, I absolutely am thrilled to see these designs, and it feels good to finally talk about it because obviously I had a lot of things to mention. I had a lot of things I wanted to say. However, we're not done here. There are two, actually a few more things that come after as well too. But there's some unique army boxes to talk about. So I think I'm gonna take a break, grab a drink of water, and then come back and try to talk about those figures as well. I don't have nearly as much to say about them. I'll mention they're just not as interesting, to me at least.
I could use a shower.
Yes.
All right, I'm back. So let's talk about the Crimson Widow and Dreadnoughts of Caraway Cavern. This was actually the first set that was revealed on the live stream from Embers of War, but yeah, it's a pirate expansion essentially. Within it is one unique hero, that being the Crimson Widow, and one unique squad, the Dreadnoughts of Caraway Cavern, formerly known as the Dreadnoughts of New Tortuga. I'm not entirely certain behind the name change there, but if I had to guess, it probably had something to do with wanting to change away from Tortuga, distance from that, from a real place and whatnot, to a more fictional and I guess ownable IP, if that makes sense. Caraway Cavern, I don't think that's based on anything. Maybe Caraway Cavern is within New Tortuga, who knows, right? But yeah, I think both names work fine. There's nothing wrong with the new name, and had the new name been the one that the Avalon Hill team had originally pitched, we wouldn't have any problems here. So yeah. Anyways, this is a really good expansion set, in my opinion, because it adds a good deal of power to a pirate army, and it's all within one box. This is kind of like the booster pack for the pirate build. I really like that these two army cards were packaged together here under one roof. So yeah, I mean, like mini wise, like the figures, they're just awesome. Like the Dreadnoughts look so good. Yeah, I can't wait to see how those look in person. But yeah, from what we can see here, I'm in love. Really enjoy it. So anyways, let's go through the two different figures here. We'll start with the Dreadnoughts since they're on the top of my mind right now. This is, like I mentioned, a unique squad with 2 life. So these are burly pirates, because we've had some pretty flimsy pirates in the past. These ones are much more burly. They can take a hit or two. 6 moves, so they're actually faster than any of the pirates we've seen so far, which is also exciting. I bet the knaves wish they had that 6 movement. 1 range, and then 3 attack, 3 defense for 80 points. I think there was an original version of this card that had 4 attack, and it was for 100 points, but they've dialed it back. And I think that was a choice made at the end of the Avalon Hill campaign. Like, I think that was a War Council decision, not a Renegade decision. I could be wrong, but yeah. Anyways, 3/3 for the attack and defense. So they have the Captain's Way and Captain's Orders powers, the same as the knaves do. And I've talked about... I've discussed my thoughts at length about those 2 powers before, so I won't rehash any of it here. Let's just say I'm not a fan of how wordy and technical and overcooked those 2 powers are. So yeah, it's unfortunate to see them here as well. I just think it's a bonding theme that was like trying to go for something like mechanically pirate with, like, you know, mutiny and who's the real captain, this and that, and like yeah, I just don't think any of it works at the end of the day. It was a neat concept on paper, but I think it needed more refinement or less time in the oven. Like I said when I was talking about the knaves, I just feel like this pair of abilities, it just comes off as way too overcooked. And I think we really needed some fresh eyes to come into the project midway through, because I think the folks that were working on it, as talented as they are, got a little like head in the sand, that sort of idea, where they were just kind of down the rabbit hole and didn't have enough outside opinions of just people coming in fresh looking at these cards. Because I think had you just shown some general board game players some of these cards, they'd be like, what? How? What? Why would it? What? You know, there'd just be a lot of questions being asked that I don't think were asked. But oh well. Anyways, that's in the past. The only other ability the Dreadnoughts have is Mortal Blow. After attacking an opponent's figure, roll 1 attack die for each wound inflicted in that attack. For each additional skull rolled, inflict 1 wound on that figure. So this allows them to really double down. It kind of reminds me of the Protectors of Alar in a sense, where there's a snowballing effect to doing damage. So for every wound that they inflict on their first attack, they can add additional potential wounds to the same figure within that same attack. It's kind of like Twist the Blade that Raylan, Age of Annihilation, has as well too. So this makes them more effective at actually killing 2-life squad figures or taking out heroes. So they kind of have a dual purpose there. So on one hand, I appreciate that they come with a bit more girth. They don't feel as flimsy on paper as the knaves are. The knaves just they get knocked over like they're made of paper. So it's nice to have the captain's orders, captain's way, those sort of powers on like a more viable army card. Like the Dreadnoughts, like just feel more capable. Because part of the problem with the whole Captain's Way, Captain's Orders, like mutiny with Breach as well, is that the only figures so far that have that bonding ability are just so flimsy. Like I said, like they just get rolled over in a turn, and it doesn't give the pirate heroes a chance to really benefit from the bonding, and it doesn't especially give Cornelius Breach a chance at being a mutineer. Like the knaves are dead long before the pirate hero they bond with is felled, and the Dreadnoughts might allow that little interplay to actually play out. So yeah, I don't know. I look forward to seeing if that'll work or not. But yeah, this seems like a much better squad to have that bonding ability than the knaves were. I really don't think the knaves should have had that bonding. I think the knaves should have been common, and so on. But yeah, we'll see how this plays. So then lastly in this box is the Crimson Widow, and she is the daughter of a real-world pirate queen, a Chinese pirate queen, and I think it's really cool how they tied her into history to make it a historical figure. I don't think that was something that was originally pitched by the Avalon Hill team, the War Council. I think that's a Renegade addition to the lore, but if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me if you know any better than I do. But I think it's a cool idea. Yeah, why not? If you see the potential there, let's just make it a true historical figure, because we don't have a lot of those. We weren't going to have any in the original Avalon Hill relaunch, and here we get a small sliver of that, which is appreciated. It's exciting. So yeah, anyways, the Crimson Widow stat line is pretty standard. It's kind of like one of those bog standard stat lines. 5 life, 5 move, range 1, we've seen that a million times now. 4 attack, which is slightly above average, or above what is common, and defense of 3. So 3 defense, 5 life, and 150 points. So if you were to just look at the stat block, you'd be kind of scratching your head thinking like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, this is almost like Spartacus levels of not making a lot of sense between the stat block and the point value. But where the Crimson Widow gets the most value is from her abilities. So we're going to go through those here. The first one, probably the most interesting of them, is Hire Crew. At the start of the game, you may choose a unique squad in your army. For this game, the chosen squad's class becomes Pirate, replacing its class listed on its army card, or replacing the class listed on its army card. So essentially, you can change any unique squad in your army, one unique squad, to become Pirates, rather than whatever they're listed as. So there are some interesting applications here because of the other figures in the Pirates build, the other heroes especially, right? Bachburna has this Intimidate ability, which I think applies to pirates and whatnot within his aura. The Admiral can move pirates around using the boarding party special attack, and there's more abilities on the Crimson Widow's card that also play into this too. So there are a lot of reasons why you want to have pirates in a pirate build, and being able to turn any unique squad into pirates is really cool. There's a lot of really interesting options out there. Lots of folks gravitate towards the Izumi Samurai or the Tarn Viking Warriors because they're both cheap, affordable, unique squads from the original master set, and they would get a lot of benefit, a lot of value out of them if they were part of a pirate build that gives them some synergy. The one drawback, and I was thinking about this, specifically about the Izumi Samurai, because I love that card, right? It's one of the best designed army cards in the whole game, in my opinion. But one of the interesting things is that their counter-strike ability doesn't work against other samurai. So if you and your opponent both had Izumi Samurai in your armies, and you had the Crimson Widow, and you changed your Izumi Samurai to becoming pirates, well, now your Izumi Samurai are actually susceptible to counter-strike. They lose that immunity to counter-strike, which is interesting. It's just like, who would have thought, 20 years later, something like that could happen to the Izumi Samurai, but yeah, here we are. Anyway, those are both really great options. There are honestly a ton of other cool picks. The Ninjas of the Northern Wind come to mind, because they'd be fun to play in a pirate build. But one of the big ones for me, it would be the Elite Onyx Vipers, just because I'm a big Vipers fan, especially if you go into Delta, because in Delta they drop quite significantly point-wise. And the reason being is because of the next ability on Crimson Widow's card, which is Pirate Commander. While there is an order marker on Crimson Widow, all pirates you control increase their attack value by 1 when attacking adjacent figures. This would benefit the Onyx Vipers immensely, because the big problem with that army card, it isn't the cost, in my opinion, and I'll talk about this more in a future episode of Homebrew Heroscape, but the big problem with that card is that the attack value is too low. The Elite Onyx Vipers get entangled with their foe, and they can't adequately combat them. They can't take them out. So then they're trapped in an engagement with only 2 defense, and they just go down. So if they had 4 attack, it's not amazing, but it is a substantial change. So that would help them out quite a bit. So I think Elite Onyx Vipers are maybe a combo that some folks are sleeping on. However, I will say that you might have to consider playing in Delta in order to make that work, because 100 points for a unique squad is a lot. It's a tall order, and Delta already recognizes that the Elite Onyx Vipers aren't that good as written on the card. But yeah, this would be a big boost. Now, in terms of the order marker thing, I'm not sure how I feel about that, to be honest. So it says, while there's an order marker on Crimson Widow. It doesn't say revealed, and it doesn't say unrevealed. It just says there needs to be an order marker on Crimson Widow. I don't know if I quite understand why this stipulation needs to be there, because you're always going to have an order marker on Crimson Widow if she's in your army, both for this ability and for the next one, which is called Midnight Raid. Before taking a turn with Crimson Widow, you may reveal the X order marker on this army card to choose up to 2 pirates you control within 6 clear sight spaces of Crimson Widow. You may move the chosen pirates up to 3 spaces each. So this is just another movement thing. It's very similar to the Admiral's boarding party bonus. This one is just free development. Yeah, you just put the X on and you get to move them, right? You get to move those figures for free. But yeah, like I said, you're going to have the X order marker on her card 100% of the time. So it just kind of feels like a little bit of tedium in having that specified. Like, there are figures in the game that give flat bonuses without any stipulations. Like Marcus gives soldiers in your army +1 movement. The Venek Warlord gives scouts +2 movement. There's no, you need to have an order marker on this card for this thing to activate sort of stipulation there. So I think they could have very easily just printed this ability, removing everything before the first comma there. So it would just read, all pirates you control increase their attack value by 1 when attacking adjacent figures. I think that's fine. I don't see anything wrong with that. So that's another case of some of these newer Heroscape designs potentially not being subject to a critical lens of, can we simplify this? Can we make this simpler? I just feel like that's a question that should be asked a little bit more frequently than it evidently has been. Otherwise, I really love this figure. I love the hook swords, that sort of weaponry is really cool. I love the card art. I think all the abilities really gel together, and the abilities make that 150 points make a lot more sense, right? You are paying a premium for building a pirate's core around the Crimson Widow, and the ability to add unique squads from previous Heroscape releases is really, really cool. Another combo here, just like looking at the things on the card, it would be the Ordo. The Ordo Borealis would be an interesting one, because you can move the Ordo with the X order marker on the Crimson Widow, move them into position, and then take a turn with them in the new position where they can also attack from. So yeah, I think it's good. It's all jiving. The only thing I don't like is the figure itself. Like the pose she has in the card art is awesome, and then the pose that she's striking for the figure itself is just kind of I guess I could attack them. Sure, yeah. Yeah, some of the pirate poses have been a little mediocre, and this is one of the more milquetoast ones, I think, out there, which is too bad because the figure's awesome. I wish she had a little bit more of a flavorful pose rather than the single shoulder shrug sort of thing she's got going on there, like, you know. But yeah, I'll definitely be picking up this box. I'm really looking forward to it. I know it's like a little thing, but I like the way that the releases have been staggered and doled out. I know all of this was supposed to come in one big box with the Avalon Hill HasLab campaign thing. And while that would have been great for the wallet, to get it all in one go, it is also interesting to see how breaking it down into smaller chunks can really shine a spotlight on certain figures in a greater way, right? When you get it all at once, it's just kind of, okay, that's all there is, right? This is everything. But when you get it in the themed sets, the themed releases, you get a chance to kind of appreciate each figure a little bit more. At least that's been my experience. I think had the Crimson Widow and the Dreadnoughts been just bundled in the master set, I wouldn't even pay them much mind. But since they get this spotlight release, they get this separate release. I think it's cool. It allows me to sit and appreciate their designs a little bit more. All right, and then we come to the last army expansion box for this wave, the Heroes of Arboreus. I like that they're kind of going back to that naming scheme, because we used to have all the different hero sets in the original waves. But yeah, for this story arc, this is the one. And this basically just rounds out the rest of the Dryans and the beasts and all that jazz. So there was kind of like miscellaneous leftovers from the HasLab War Council designs, and these are the leftovers. And this is the one I'm definitely the least interested in. There's just a bunch of figures in here that I don't think need to exist. They just don't do anything grand. I really think quite strongly that we got all the interesting Dryan wizards already. Like all the best designs have already been released, and this is just the leftovers. So I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about each one because nothing would interest me less than doing that. So I'll just go through them in the order that they revealed them. So Marachott, Mind Whisperer, is the first one here. Really like the card art for this one. I think that's kind of neat. Oh my goodness, do I have to read all these? I don't know. Anyways, this is a wizard that can command familiars, just like Girushia, just like Haluchott, that sort of stuff. There's an interesting auto skull ability here. The Staff of Kurapirian, I think. I don't know. When rolling attack dice for a normal attack, Marachott always adds 2 automatic skulls to whatever's rolled. They only have an attack of 1, so getting that guaranteed damage I think is cool. I kind of wish that ability was on like a card that would actually be in the front lines. Like I don't know, like if you gave this ability to, let's say, Moorsbane from way back when, from Wave 4, yeah, give Moorsbane, you know, their staff, their Rod of Negation, and then give them the Staff of Kurapiran as well. Like, yeah, it's a neat ability, but you're putting it on a card that, like, doesn't need that ability. Like you're not rushing Moorsbane up to the front lines to take to start attacking figures, you know. And I just kind of see it as kind of a wasted potential, like wasted ability here, which is too bad. That being said, this figure is definitely going to see a little bit more of frontline combat because they have no ranged attack. They kind of need to be up at the front, and, even though they're a wizard and they don't necessarily have the best stat block for it. I mean, 6 life is nothing to sneeze at. That's like a lot of the elf wizards. 6 life and 3 defense is fairly survivable. That's not, you know, that's nothing to scoff at there. But I just I don't know, I'm not really seeing it. Like, once this figure gets surrounded by melee squads, it's all over. Yeah. Anyways, their main ability here is Marachott's Whisper, which allows you to potentially take a turn with a unique hero within 2 spaces of Marachott. Oh, interesting. It's just 2 spaces, not 2 sight spaces. Interesting. Okay, I guess it's maybe a mind control sort of thing. They don't actually need to see their target. Yeah. Anyways, you roll the 20-sided die, adding 3 to the roll if you already control that hero. And if you roll a 16 or higher, take temporary control of the hero and immediately take a turn. After taking that turn, control of the chosen hero returns to their previous owner, and any order markers that were on the card stay on the card, so it doesn't disrupt anything there. It's similar to the Mind Flayer from D&D, their Enslave ability. That's what this reminds me of. Yeah, but like 2 spaces away, that's tiny. And if you're trying to grab like a really high value target from your opponent, they're not going to let you get within 2 spaces of it. Yeah, forget about it. Like if it's a big dragon or a commander or some other type of figure in the army, yeah, they're not going to let you do that. So I don't know if I see a lot of utility in that, and the D20 roll is too high for it to be reliable. So I kind of stand by my Moorsbane comparison earlier. I think Marachott is gonna basically have a similar fate to Moorsbane. Now Marachott does have more going for them with the Command Familiar ability, allowing them to take turns with familiars and such. But we already had Dryans that do that. And they have other abilities that make them better too. I'm thinking of Awashia and Haluchott specifically. Yeah, I just don't see this one making a huge dent. Yeah, oh well. So the other Dryan wizard that everybody is excited about, I see so much discussion about this figure, and I don't understand it. This is Haluchott. Haluchott, maybe? Yeah. Haluchott, Corruptor of Beasts. Yeah, I don't see it, folks. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people are excited for this, but I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Anyways, 5 life, 5 move, 1 range, 3 attack, 4 defense, and 125 points. They also fly, so that's an interesting benefit too. This card has the command ability, or the command familiar ability, but like expanded. So they have command of the wild. After revealing an order marker on Haluchott, Corruptor of Beasts, before taking Haluchott's turn, you may take a turn with up to 2 small, medium, or large beasts you control. So they actually expand the roster there to include large beasts. And at present, there really aren't a lot of large beasts you can use. It's kind of like Swag Riders or Ice Trolls. And, gosh, I don't know. The Ice Troll might be the ugliest mini in all of Heroscape. Like, it makes my day worse every time I have to see it. So if this new figure is gonna make Ice Trolls appear at more events, that's 2 hearty thumbs down from our Slugger. Yeah, and I get it. I mean, like, the obvious defense is, oh, it's a troll, it's supposed to be ugly, but like, no, does that excuse like the seam lines along the side of it? Like, it looks like such crap. It's such a bad looking miniature. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. I'm not really seeing it, folks. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to get excited about bonding that already existed. And what I mean by that is the Arrogrettes. They bond with beasts. And it's not even limited to small, medium, or large. It's all beasts, so they can get Krug and Mimring in on the action as well, too. So these figures that Haluchott is supposedly helping already have a really solid army core. They already have Arrogrettes. So I don't know. I'm just not excited to see the same figures get more bonding. I don't know. Like, am I missing something here? Some folks have been pointing out too that. Now you can take like 2 turns with them, like let's say the Ice Troll, right? You can take 2 turns with the Ice Troll, and I'm just kind of scratching my head thinking like, well, I already could with Ornak, right? So like this bonding stuff already existed in the game. I just don't understand why Command of the Wild is being seen with such fervor. I don't get it. So I don't know. It's gonna make some people happy. I could care less. Or I couldn't care less, rather. Then there's a special attack ability that I don't like. I don't like this at all. This is Staff of the Long Hand. It's range 6, attack 2, and its only ability is that you may use the Staff of the Long Hand special attack before or after using Haluchott's normal attack. So for the first time, at least to my, as far as I'm aware, the first time ever, we have a special attack that can also be used at the same time as a normal attack, or they can be used interchangeably on your turn. And I don't like that. I don't know. I think it like muddies the waters and kind of breaks from the established form in a way that doesn't like have a huge impact or like a positive impact. I don't know. I would nix that ability from the card. Maybe that's just me being stuck up, but yeah, I'm not a fan. The last power here is kind of a ribbon power. It's Calm the Beast. When defending against an attack from a beast, Haluchott increases their defense value by 2. I like how it's impactful, like it's by 2 on the defense, not just by 1. So that's nice, but it's pretty rare that you're going to go up against a beast. So this isn't going to come into play in most of your games. But depending on what Renegade does next, if they actually start releasing some more beasts into the game, then maybe this ability will become more valuable. The problem that they're going to run into, however, is that the Arrogrettes exist. And anytime you add a new beast into the game, you're also adding another bonding option to the Arrogrettes. And if you add in something really good as a beast, you might then catapult the Arrogrettes into higher tiers of play. Like they might become a really top tier build because they're already pretty strong. You can already do a lot with Arrogrettes. So you just got to be careful about that. So the fact that Haluchott is bonding with the same figures that the Arrogrettes are already bonding with limits the potential of Haluchott. It doesn't limit the potential of the Arrogrettes because they're already really good, but it certainly limits the potential of Haluchott. So that's kind of a negative in terms of it's a crowded design space, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say here. Overall, I'm really not seeing the dream on this figure. Maybe it's a perfectly valid, viable build to run Haluchott with 2 Ice Troll Berserkers and make that work, but then you have to put the Ice Troll in your army. And that's a bridge too far for me. All right, next we're getting Vrono the Brambletooth. Vrono the Brambletooth. Yeah, RR the Slugger. Yeah. I don't know if there's anything more to be added to the naming conventions from the War Council figures, but yeah, it's a lot of something, the something, right? Something, the something. Decker the Burrowbreaker, like, it frustrates me to no end. Like, just call the figure Decker Burrowbreaker. Like, Burrowbreaker's a perfectly good last name for this Vord character. Why does it have to be the Burrowbreaker? Same thing here. Vrono Brambletooth. Like, just do that. Not the Brambletooth. It's so dumb. Anyways, it's such a small thing. It really shouldn't matter. But it annoys me every time I see it. Anyways, yeah, this is a small beast. So this is a familiar that can be bonded with from the Dryans. This figure has 3 life, 5 move, 1 attack, 1 range, 2 attack, and 4 defense. So 4 defense with 3 life is actually pretty good for 45 points. But they only have 1 ability, and it is as follows. It's called Sharp Thorns. If an enemy small or medium figure moves onto a space adjacent to Vrono the Brambletooth, where that figure could end its movement, you may roll the 20-sided die. If you roll a 12 or higher, the figure ends its movement and lowers its attack value by 1 until the end of the current turn. If you roll an 18 or higher, the figure also receives 1 wound. I like this, the concept behind this ability. I really do, to be honest. It strikes me as something very similar to the air elemental from D&D. It's basically there to stop your opponent from moving into places. It's almost like the vine glyphs from Zenithrax, just like, you know, putting up barriers that your opponent can't move through. This one just happens to be a figure that generates that sort of defense thing. 12 or higher. It's somewhat reliable, not the most reliable, but you can count on it, basically on a coin flip. Yeah, this should help protect the Dryan Wizards somewhat. I honestly don't know which is going to be the best one for this. My mind immediately goes to Girushia because she's the one with the best special attack. She's got that range 6 attack 4 special attack, and she also only has 4 life. So you really don't want wound markers on her card because they're valuable wound markers. Whereas with like Haluchia's got 7 life. Haluchia can take a few hits before going down, so you don't mind putting wound markers on that card. But yeah, you want to defend Girushia. The only thing here is that Girushia kind of already has that built in. Like, she can place water tiles. She can already screen for herself. So what she really wants is a figure that can also dish out damage, like Onshu. So I don't know if Vrono's really going to see a ton of play. This is kind of another figure, just like the last two, where I'm like, I don't know, like it's kind of yeah. Especially power level wise, it doesn't feel like the figures in this box are nearly as potent as any of the other boxes we've talked about so far. So yeah, I think this is going to be a bit of a shelf warmer of a set of figures. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really seeing it here. Anyways, that's Vrono. Yeah, just small kind of filler figure. I wouldn't even consider taking this figure without Dryan Wizards, and if you're taking any amount of Dryan Wizards, there are a lot of better options already. Like, I think there's an argument to be made that Kita is a better figure for your army than Vrono is. So yeah, and if you're not bonding for 45 points, you could take the Molten Crustaceans, which is probably a better choice, even in a little build like that, because you can create some little height things or try to block up some enemies, like put a screen in front of your wizard. Yeah, Vrono's gonna have a hard time, I think, but we'll see. Okay, another Dryan Wizard. Yeah, okay. Part of me wonders, because like all these Dryan Wizard characters are from the Avalon Hill War Council stuff. Part of me wonders if like Avalon Hill had some like minimum figure requirements or something. Like they were like, okay, the you know, Kickstarter, the HasLab, whatever, must contain X number of figures. So the War Council came up with like, oh, okay, well, let's just kind of churn out some more Dryan Wizards, like just toss them together and throw them out, right? Like, because there was really no need to have this many Dryan Wizards. I think maybe consolidating things a bit and like taking the best ideas from some of them and putting them together on one card might have been smarter, but here we are. Anyways, this is Girushia, Grovekeeper. Not the Grovekeeper, just Girushia, Grovekeeper. I can't even. Okay, Command Familiar. Yeah, that's the same old. Oh, yeah, I hate this. Okay, Wicked Thorns. So Vrono had Sharp Thorns. Girushia has Wicked Thorns. The ability is exactly the same, except that Girushia needs a 10 or higher to stop movement, and Vrono needs a 12 or higher. Ugh. Why? Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I hate this. Just call it Sharp Thorns or Wicked Thorns. Pick one, and then put the number that you need after the name of the ability. This is it's such basic Heroscape power design. Like Engagement Strike on the Nikita agents is a 15 or higher, but Engagement Strike on Arkmer is a 13 or higher. So Engagement Strike 15 is the Nikita power, and Engagement Strike 13 is Arkmer's power. Here we are with the exact same situation. So this should be Sharp Thorns 10, and the previous one on Vrono should have been Sharp Thorns 12. Seems like a no-brainer to me. So I don't know where the blame falls in fumbling the bag on this, but all things being equal, Renegade is the last group of designers with their hands on the cards here, so it was up to them to kind of fix it. And I'm just kind of disappointed that it released in this state. I think this was an easy thing to correct. So missed opportunity. Anyways, yeah. So there's that ability. It's here. It's back again, and it's on Girushia as well as Vrono, which is weird, but whatever. Anyways, Reach is a great ability. This is awesome. It's I think it first appeared on the Hydra back in D&D, but basically it just lets you attack at melee to a range of 2. So it just increases the threshold in which you can engage melee figures. One of the main advantages here is that it allows you to attack over top of a screen. So it allows you to attack through one of your blocking figures or something like that. So you can keep Girushia just behind the front lines and attack out, which is something that, gosh, I can't even remember half the names of these things. Marachott, yeah, Marachott probably wishes they had, was something to attack at a slight distance, because Marachott's just going to get swarmed by melee figures and go down easy, whereas Girushia is going to have a better time with that, I think. So yeah, that's a fantastic ability. And the last ability on the card here is awesome. Love this one so much. So at the end of a round, if Girushia is next to a tree or bush, you may remove 1 wound marker from this army card. I love that this does not have a d20 roll. I'm almost shocked that this doesn't have a d20 roll, given the other designs we've seen from the War Council. Like Bokburna's Utgar's Cutlass ability, right? 14 or higher. So not only do you have to kill a figure adjacent to Bokburna, which is something you don't really want to do with Bokburna anyways, but then you also have to roll a 14 or higher to remove 1 wound from Bokburna's card. It feels so unnecessary to me. But this, thank goodness it's not tied to a 14 or higher or something dumb like that. It's just, you just get this ability. If you can put Girushia next to a tree or a bush at the end of a round, you get to remove a wound. Love it. That's fantastic. Yes, love that so much. So I think of the 3 new Dryan wizards that we're getting in this set, I think this is the best one, or at least the one that I find the most interesting. I don't know if I'm really seeing the dream with this figure either, because Haluchott and Awashia and even Marachott to an extent have a lot of like theming and play style kind of baked into their design in a really intuitive way. I just don't see that as strongly with these Dryan wizards that we've seen here today. This one's probably the best of the 3 in that regard, because I get the whole, like, you want to keep your opponents at distance, you want to keep them at reach, and Wicked Thorns is going to help do that as well. But it's not, I don't know, like the Wicked Thorns thing says that they have to move adjacent to Girushia for it to trigger. And you don't want figures moving adjacent to Girushia. You want to keep them at reach, so you're going to put figures in the way, ideally. So Wicked Thorns isn't really going to play. Like you're not going to see that ability happen all that much. It's kind of a mismatch of priorities, is what it strikes me as. It reminds me of the Greater Ice Elemental from D&D, because that card has conflicting abilities as well too. It's got the Ice Spikes thing, which, or it's like an engagement strike essentially, right? So as they move up to you, you get to trigger this ability to inflict wounds to them. But the figure is a melee figure, so you want to be adjacent to your opponents. So what often ends up happening when you play that figure is you just run in adjacent to your opponent's figures to get your attacks off, but then you don't get to trigger the Ice Spikes thing. You don't get to trigger that engagement strike because you're already adjacent to your opponent. So like, yeah, you see it's kind of like a mismatch. Both of those things, they don't gel. They actually conflict with each other. And I feel the same sort of thing here with the Wicked Thorns and Reach. So like, you want to be using Reach all of the time, and if you're using Reach all of the time, you're not using Wicked Thorns, and vice versa, because if the opponents get within adjacency with Girushia, then Reach is null and void. So yeah, I don't know what would have done it here for the card, but I almost wish Gift of the Forest, that healing ability, was on Haluchia's card, and they just scrubbed Girushia from the game. Like, they just got rid of this figure and instead gave that ability to Haluchia. That might have been a little bit more interesting, but yeah. Anyways, this figure's here. They're a pretty cheap Dryan Wizard at only 90 points. So I definitely think they're kind of like undercosted compared to the other Dryans, where like Marachott and even Iwashia are like a little overcosted comparatively. I think they both go down in Delta. Girushia, though, no, 90 points, 6 life, 4 attack. Like, yeah, really good stat block for 90 points. Yeah, so I can see this one just being popular just because it seems to be a good deal for the figure. But yeah, I'm not in love with it, but it's okay. All right, the last figure in this box is Chana the Zenithwing, and this is another small beast. So another familiar to bond with. This one has 3 life, 5 move with stealth flying, which is really interesting. I like the stealth flying ability there. Range of 1, attack of 2, defense of 3 for 30 points. This figure's not gonna fly in and do a lot of work. It's not a mini Onshu. Onshu's kind of in a league of its own, but Chana does have one ability that will be pretty beneficial, I think. If Chana the Zenithwing is within 5 clear sight spaces of a wizard that you control, instead of attacking, you may roll the 20-sided die. If you roll a 12 or higher, you may remove 1 wound marker from a friendly wizard or beast adjacent to Chana. So it's Chana's a healer, right? Do you give up an attack to heal a wound? That's one of the one of the things about Heroscape. It's one of those like philosophical debates, and I think the debate is largely settled. Honestly, it's basically if you kill your opponent, you can't take any more wounds, right? Like it's just better to kill your opponent than it is to try to play the healing game and try to outlast your opponent 9 times out of 10. So that kind of, I don't know, it puts a little bit of a wrinkle in Chana's usability. Like, is it honestly better to give up an attack just to heal a wound? And I think the answer is really going to depend on which Dryan you pair Chana with. I mentioned this earlier, but Iwashia is the one Dryan that you do not want wound markers on the most, right? She's got the lowest life of any of the figures, and figures with low life want to remove wounds more than figures with high life. because a figure with high life has more of a buffer, right? If in a single attack, Knight Primus Adelburn takes 3 wounds, you're not too phased by that because you got 8 life total, right? 3 wounds isn't that much proportionately of the life that you have. But if a Washia takes 3 wounds, holy Toledo, call the paramedics. We need to get those wounds off of that army card as quickly as we can, because a Washia is as good as dead at this point. So that's where I think Chana will have some viability, is in a Washia builds. You're not going to take Chana with Haluchia because, again, you're not going to care about putting wounds on a figure with 6 or 7 life. A lot of the new Drying Wizards all have 6 life on them too, so I don't think Chana is going to be that useful in those situations. Rachott's got 5, so maybe on Marachott, but really I just think it's going to be an Awashia thing. I could see this figure being really useful for Awashia, keeping her alive, keeping her back, and allowing her to unleash her Twister special attack over and over and over again is really the play, I think. So, yeah. The ability itself, Renew 12, is like, it's really fiddly. Yeah, I'm not sure how if I like it or not. The whole first sentence could be, or sorry, not first sentence, the first right up to the first comma. I think you could just cross that all out, and you just have a better ability, like an easier ability to understand. So yeah, there's this weird restriction on Chana where Chana has to stay within 5 clear sight spaces of the wizard that's controlling them, or at least a wizard that you control, in order for the healing ability to work. So yeah, I don't know. I just think it's fiddly. It's tedious, and it doesn't like really add or limit or restrict anything substantial. I just think you could have just written this ability where you roll the 20-sided die. If you roll a 12 or higher, you may remove 1 wound marker from a friendly wizard or beast adjacent to Chana. I think that's fine. Like, yeah. I guess what they were trying to curtail was, if I had to venture a guess, it might be removing wounds from Mimring in an Arrowgret build, because the Arrowgrets can bond with Chana and they can bond with Mimring, so maybe they needed to put this restriction in there so that you at least need to have a wizard within 5 clear sight spaces to activate this ability, to remove wounds off of Mimring. And I guess I get the impetus there, but there's a 20-point wizard in the game. Yeah, Quintella Gwyn is only 20 points. So you could put Quintella Gwyn and Chana in an Arrowgret build with Mimring, and then you can, still activate the healing on Mimring pretty reliably. So yeah, I don't know if it was worth the effort, worth the confusion of writing out the ability as wordy as it got here. Yeah, it just seems like another layer of complexity to an ability that really didn't need it. And unless there's some like VC reason this exists the way it does. But I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it till the cows come home. If we're designing official cards based on VC designs, like taking that into account, then I mean that is the tail wagging the dog 100%. Like, I respect VC, and I really appreciate how many people enjoy it. And there's a lot of designs in VC that I enjoy too. But at the end of the day, like, those are just custom figures. Like they're figures that a group of people have decided that, yeah, we'll play with these, they really shouldn't be taken into account when designing official figures, in my opinion. I don't want VC trampled over. I want it respected, but it can't be the reason why decisions are being made in official scape, if that makes sense, right? Like, because it's a minority of people that use VC or play with VC. I know they have a dedicated fan base, but like the majority of us playing Heroscape just play with the official figures. Yeah, so Anyways, yeah, that's Chana The Zenithwing. I think there's potential here, and this is actually a figure that I've seen a lot of folks speak very poorly of. Like it's just kind of like, ugh, no, this is no good. I see potential with Girushia specifically, and perhaps with the Mimring build as well too in an Aerogret army. Maybe there's some potential there. But yeah, I like Chana. I mean, this is crazy, but Chana's probably the figure out of the 5 here that I think I'll end up using the most. The other ones, not so sure. But yeah. All right. Anyways, that's the Heroes of Arboreus. Okay, and there's one more figure worth talking about here today, and that is Deflectatron. Deflectatron is a new promo figure, so it's going to be organized play as well as a pre-order bonus, and then eventually they'll put it up for sale where you can just buy copies of it. But yeah, Deflectatron, and this is not at all what I thought it was going to be. Like looking at the card art and the figure, yeah, this is completely different than what I imagined in my head. That's not to say it's bad; it's just different. And the reason why I think folks were very excited about this one, or maybe apprehensive, maybe a little like cautiously optimistic, is because the Tron army in Vidar's ranks, like the Blastatrons and the Gladiatrons, right? That's a staple Heroscape Soulborg army core, right? Like that is a fan favorite right there. And to receive something new that's supposed to play into that, it's exciting. And folks like myself were anxiously awaiting the card reveal to see, like, is this figure actually going to play well into those armies or not? So yeah, anyways, let's go through the card, because this is a really interesting one. First off, it's common hero, not a unique hero, not an uncommon hero. This is a common hero, meaning you can draft as many of them into your army as you like, and you can activate any one of them using one order marker on a card, on a single card. They can all be controlled with a single card, if that makes sense. So yeah, this is a Soulborg common hero guard, so it's a guard common hero. And it's stubborn, which I think is a weird choice for the personality. I used to care more about personality stuff before D&D came out back in the day, because it was a little bit more streamlined. Like you had wild figures, you had relentless figures. Like there were these like archetypes that things fit into. And then honestly, if I'm being perfectly honest, it wasn't D&D that kind of kicked the trend. It was more Wave 9 or Wave 10, I can't remember. The ones with like the Mohicans that are now fearsome or something. I think they're fearsome. And there's other figures in that wave that just kind of got new personalities that have never been seen before and haven't been used since to a large extent. Yeah, and then in D&D, it just like spiraled out of control. Like we started getting personalities that, like, to me make no sense, like militaristic as a personality trait. Like, can you explain the difference between militaristic personality and a disciplined personality? Like, are you saying that, Roman general Marcus Decimus Gallus isn't militaristic? Right? It's just such a weird distinction to draw between those sorts of things. Yeah, D&D is where Heroscape jumped the shark on that left-hand side of the army card, where you started to get not knights, but death knights, not elves, but Eladrin, like just nonsense like that, where it became so granular that synergy webs became tougher and tougher to establish. So anyways, stubborn. I'm not thrilled with that. I think you could have gone with a number of other things that could have made more sense. One of them was on an earlier card in this wave, patient. I think patient would have made more sense here. Like a patient defender, talk to the hand, that sort of thing. But alas. So over on the right-hand side of the card, we've got the stat block, 1 life, so 1 life common hero, 4 move, which isn't going to matter at all. We'll talk about that in a minute. Range 1, attack 3, pretty high attack, if I'm being perfectly honest. and Defense 4 for 25 points. So this is a 25-point filler, the very first 25-point filler within Age of Annihilation. So within Contemporary format, this is currently the cheapest army card. I'm really hoping down the line we get 20-point filler and 10-point filler in Contemporary, because I think Contemporary really needs that. Now, I'm not saying we need something on the level of Marku or Isamu, because I hate both of those figures and how powerful they are for their price tag. It's very likely that both of those figures will be a subject of homebrew Heroscape in the future. But yeah, I would love to see something like along the lines of Odonashi for 10 points in Contemporary, and something along the lines of Quintella Gwyn for 20 points in Contemporary. I think both of those are better examples to look to. So yeah, anyways, 25 points. What does it do? Well, the first thing on the card is called Orbital Deployment 3. Figures with the Orbital Deployment special power do not start the game on the battlefield. At the start of a round, before placing order markers, you may place one Deflectatron that has not entered the battlefield on an empty space within 3 clear sight spaces of a friendly figure. You cannot use more than one Orbital Deployment special power each round. So this is a hard limit. That last sentence, there's a hard limit saying that if more figures in the game come out later on, or if you have multiple Deflectatrons in your army, you cannot orbitally deploy them. You cannot frick. This is just saying that you cannot orbitally deploy them all within, one round. You have to wait to do it. Yeah, so this is great, and this is why that 4 movement is never going to come up. Like, you're basically never going to put an order marker on this card. You're going to use the orbital deployment power to put it where you want it. You're probably not going to drop it round 1. Round 2 might make some sense, but round 3 and into the later stages of the game is where I think this gets the most interesting. Yeah, it's really cool, and it's very thematic. It's being launched from Vidar's spy satellite or something like that. It's cool, yeah. So the next effect is called Passive. A Deflectatron never makes leaving engagement attacks. This is a negative ability. Like, this is one that doesn't benefit you. It just restricts what Deflectatron can do. So this is like the opposite of disengage, essentially. Like, it basically gives your opponents disengage. Any figure that walks past or near Deflectatron just has the effects of a disengage ability, which makes sense given the defender role here. The last ability is by far the most complicated, the most difficult to parse, but it's also the most interesting of the 3, I think. So it's called Magnetic Deflector Shield. Figures adjacent to one or more Deflectatrons cannot determine clear sight to any figures. When a figure adjacent to one or more of your Deflectatrons defends against an attack from a non-adjacent figure, change one die result that was not a shield to a shield if possible. Magnetic Deflector Shield is negated when adjacent to another figure with the Magnetic Deflector Shield special power. So 3 sentences, all 3 of them do something and have an effect, which is kind of one of the difficult things to comprehend about this power. It's basically 3 abilities kind of wrapped into one. So the first sentence, figures adjacent to one or more Deflectatrons cannot determine clear sight to any figures, is man, there's so much potential behind this. Basically what it's doing is it's turning off the little green dot on the right-hand side of the army card for any figures adjacent to the Deflectatron. And that is that's huge. Now it's not just your figures, it's opponents' figures as well. It's just any figures adjacent to a Deflectatron cannot determine clear sight, which means they can't attack at range. It means they can't use any aura abilities that require clear sight. So like Raylan's aura, like those sorts of things get shut off. Which to me is like, I think one of the coolest ways to use a Deflectatron is to pop it down in your opponent's ranks next to one of their cheerleader sort of aura figures, and then try to bank on winning initiative and get a turn where you've now shut off your opponent's Raylan for that turn, right? There's so much potential there. So I'm really digging that idea. It's huge. It's hugely impactful, and I think like the way that you can see that making sense is like the figures next to a Deflectatron pass within its like bubble, like it's got like a shield bubble sort of thing. Like I'm just thinking like what's actually happening, like this sort of thematic lore thing. And within the bubble, you can't see out very clearly, like it blurs everything, but it's a protective bubble that helps defend figures. So that could be one way that that power is meant to be interpreted. The second sentence is the defensive ability, essentially. So it says, when a figure adjacent to one or more of your Deflectatrons defends against an attack from a non-adjacent figure, so at range again, change one die result that was not a shield to a shield. So you're flipping one of the die to a shield. It's not quite as good as tough, where it just automatically adds a shield to whatever you roll. So the difference there being like if you have a figure with a defense of 3, if they have tough, then they essentially have a defense of 4 with one of those die results always being a shield. But with magnetic deflector shield, they still only have a defense of 3. It's just that one of the die is guaranteed to be a shield. Now, guaranteed shields are really good, like arguably better than guaranteed skulls, because it's harder to roll a shield than it is to roll a skull. So that's awesome. Yeah, no complaints about that. The last sentence here is like, I could see a version of this card where they didn't bother putting this sentence in, but I'm glad they did, because it's thematic and it's fun, and it shows it shows some forethought for the interplay between some of these figures, because this one is saying magnetic deflector shield is negated while adjacent to another figure with magnetic deflector shield, right? So this is basically saying if Deflectatron is next to another Deflectatron, their magnetic shields, like the polarity of them, cancel each other out, and you're left with nothing. So it just negates the whole power there, which means that your opponent can, like, let's say you deploy a Deflectatron to guard your army, round 2 or whatever, and then round 3 comes along, your opponent can launch a Deflectatron right next to yours to take your Deflectatron out, and now they can attack at range and there's no penalty. That's like, yeah, I love it. I think it's going to lead to some situations, though, given the orbital deployment power and the way it's phrased, where you're going to have to roll off with your opponent to see who can deploy their Deflectatron first, because it says the start of round before placing order markers, which means that's before you roll initiative. So let's say you want to deploy a Deflectatron at the start of like round 2 or something. You'll have to basically, and assuming your opponent has Deflectatron in their army too, you'll probably have to communicate with them in that moment saying like, hey, I want to deploy my Deflectatron. Do you want to deploy yours? Because if so, we need to roll off to see who does it first. Because depending on where you put yours, that might impact where I put mine. So that has the potential to slow the game down slightly, but I think it's a worthy sacrifice, because there is a lot of strategic potential behind this army card. It's a complicated one, I won't lie, and for a filler unit, like 25 points, that's a lot of text to have to read and like to have to get a pretty firm grasp of. And as Deflectatron right now is the cheapest filler unit in Age of Annihilation, you're going to run into Deflectatrons in armies, maybe multiples sometimes. So you need to know how this card works. This is going to be one that, even if you don't want Deflectatron, you don't want this figure in your army, you're going to need to understand how this figure works. It's kind of like a Raylan in that sort of sense. Like, even if you vehemently do not want to play with Raylan, you need to understand how Raylan functions if you want to, play in local events and that sort of thing, because you're going to run into it. And I think Deflectatron's going to be a similar case, like a similar scenario, where, yeah, you're just going to see some of these in armies. And sometimes I think there's honestly a case to be made that, like, if you've got, you know, some filler points sitting around, maybe instead of grabbing Kita, like, let's say you have 30 points left over in your army, maybe instead of grabbing Kita, you're going to grab a Deflectatron instead. Even if you don't intend on using the abilities yourself, just having the figure to turn off your opponent's Deflectatron might end up being worth it in the end. It's kind of like putting Marku in your army to shut off the Wanok glyph, because Marku basically invalidates that glyph's existence, which is one of the things I don't like about the figure, but that's neither here nor there. So the Deflectatron is a really cool addition to the strategic layer of Heroscape. Okay, I've been talking a lot, and I said at the start of this I had a lot of things to say. Like, I've been thinking about this quite a bit for the past week, but I'll just really quickly gloss over the terrain expansion sets here. So we're getting the Ruins at Lour's Edge, which is a big wall terrain pack. Very excited about this. I know it's expensive. They're releasing it for, what was it, $70? Yeah. And I know that made a lot of people go like, "Woo, sheesh, you know, $70 for walls." Ugh. I get that. But keep in mind, the walls are like really thick, like hardy plastic, like they're solid, high quality things. I was really impressed with the quality of them out of the box from Age of Annihilation. It's a huge step up from the Ruins that we're used to in Heroscape. And the crummy, like, Fisher-Price castle set that we used to have to suffer with, like, oh man, the Fortress of the Archcurie, blah. Yeah, so I'm all for new Ruins, and this is great to see so many added elements to the mix here. It's just great to see. So yeah, I'll be definitely getting a set of this. It's also one that, like, unfortunately, oh man, if you had two of them, then you could, like, really get cooking and build some really interesting things. But, like, two of them is 140. That's USD, by the way, too. So like you're looking at upwards of, I don't know, like $200 Canadian for walls. I don't know. Ugh, yeah. Yikes. Pretty expensive stuff, but you know, high quality product. I love it. The other set here is the Roads of Valhalla, and this is just a roads kit. Like, it basically takes the place of the Road to the Forgotten Forest, although it doesn't have any forest. Yeah, this one's for $50. It's basically the same number of road hexes within the pack. It's got a lot of single hex roads. Oh, interestingly, no 2-hex roads. I didn't notice that at first. I'm just noticing that now. That's interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. Oh well. Anyways, the really cool thing that I like that they're doing, I'm actually shocked that they're doing this, is they added the bridges back. And not only did they put one bridge in the set, they've actually put 2 bridges in the set this time around. I really like this decision. I think that's cool. That adds a lot of value to just getting one set of this. You don't need to get 2 to get lots and lots of bridges, because the bridges are a lot of fun to build with. Like, I know they don't feature on a lot of competitive maps, but they're like a really cool element to make some casual or interesting looking designs. Yeah, I'm all for it. So I'm really happy that not only are they doing the bridges again, because I didn't think they were gonna, to be honest. Not only are they doing the bridges, but they're actually giving you more bridges, which will be great. A lot of my bridges have yellowed with age and time, so it would be cool to get some new ones. So yeah, I'll probably get a set of this as well too. I don't really need any more road tiles or bridges for that matter, to be honest. But yeah, if I see it pop up at my local game store, I'll get a set. Another thing I really like here is this dice tray with the map of Valhalla in the background. Yeah, totally into it. I would buy it even if it didn't come with the dice, and the dice are fine. I don't know if I'll really use them all that much, to be honest, but I really like the dice tray. Yeah, I like the foldable snap snap ones, like, yeah, something soft to roll your dice into. I don't like wooden trays that don't have any felt in them or anything like that. I don't like dice towers. Like, they just kind of wreck the printing on the Heroscape dice, and the Heroscape dice don't have like the best printing to begin with, like the most long lasting. A lot of my dice are pretty weathered looking because they've been rolled a lot, you know. So I try to take care of them these days because they don't last forever. And yeah. So somewhat ironically, I think here, these combat dice that come in this set actually have like, I think it's like a recess in it. Like the logos are slightly set into the die, so they don't have any chance of getting scratched or whatever. But here they are in a dice tray set that wouldn't scratch them anyways. But oh well, huzzah! Okay, I think I'm just about done. They talked a bit more about the Valkyrie Trials events and all these sorts of things, more Gen Con stuff, because that's right around the corner. That's all things that were kind of more or less mentioned in the last major live stream. The Raylan figure, this new Raylan, I guess 4.0 figure, is going to be an organized play event promo as well now too, in August and September. I'm really looking forward to that. This figure is one that probably from that whole last live stream, this is the one figure I'm most excited about. I cannot wait to get this Raylan on the board and start playing them. Yeah, I just like the design quite a bit. So yeah, very excited to not have to go to Gen Con to get it. So yeah, looking forward to that. Yeah, anyways, okay, let's wrap things up here. Yeah, Heroscape, it's alive and kicking, and there's a lot of cool things on the horizon for Heroscape that I'm looking forward to. Yeah, a lot of these common sets from this wave, Embers of War, are looking really great. Yeah, I'm excited. So anyways, thanks for listening in here. Hopefully you found some of this to be at least entertaining at the very least, if not hopefully insightful. I definitely had some experience with some of the figures that I was talking about, so hopefully hearing my thoughts and opinions on those was valuable. But anyways, I will see you on the next one here, and until then, happy scaping.